Hey everybody, my name is Brandon Rote. I'm a mixed martial artist out of Brooksville, Florida, and today I'm going to go over things that you should consider as a parent before putting your child in martial arts. So back when I lived in Maryland before I had moved to Florida, I was a martial arts teacher, an instructor, coach, whatever you want to call it, and I had taught kids martial arts from ages 3 and up. I started helping teach when I was 12 years old. I got hired when I was 14, and then I taught up until I moved, which was earlier this year. So in total, I taught for about 6 years. In doing so, I taught hundreds of kids, I've talked to several parents, and me myself, I started martial arts when I was around 6 years old. And here are some things that you should consider before you put your child in martial arts. I'm first going to start off with a few serious things that you should really consider when you do it, and then some other things that aren't so serious but I think should still be mentioned. The first one is that it is a combat sport, meaning that the ultimate goal is to teach your kid how to fight. Meaning that your kid will be fighting. There are hundreds of martial arts schools out there that kind of teach what I call kindergarten martial arts, where it is less based off of traditional, actual, practical fighting, self-defense tactics, things like that, and more of just a after-school activity to make money, really. And this is unfortunate for two main reasons. The first one is that it kind of ruins the whole idea of martial arts, in the sense that it's supposed to be this fierce, intense, warrior character building, art form. And it kind of breaks that down. And the second thing is that it dilutes the severity of what martial arts is, which is fighting. Fighting is never anything that should be taken lightly. And when you have schools that kind of, do this diluted version of martial arts, you end up getting kids who feel like they know how to fight but never learned actual good technique or practices to fight. You end up getting kids who get their black belt at 8 years old, and it creates a lot of issues. Now, keeping that in mind, when you go to put your child in martial arts, you're probably going to also put them in for other reasons, such as self-control, self-discipline, humility, other things like that, which martial arts provides. And that is a huge, huge aspect of martial arts. All I'm telling you to keep in mind is while, yes, it is great for your child to go into martial arts learning those things, they are also going to be there, if you go to the right school, to learn how to fight. And fighting comes with its whole set of things that you need to look out for. Which is going to lead me into point 2, which is you need to really, really study the school that you're going to. As I said before, martial arts isn't anything to be taken lightly. And so before you go and toss your child into fighting, you need to make sure that the school that you're going to is on its A game. And the first thing to look for is that the school that you're going to is actually teaching your kid how to fight and how to defend themselves. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking that you don't want to send your kid to karate, or you don't want to send them into, boxing or anything like that to learn how to fight, but more so for that self-discipline aspect, for that control aspect, for, the humility aspect. These are all things that you should be sending your child to martial arts for. These are also all things that the child gains through learning how to fight. There's no greater confidence out there knowing that you're able to defend yourself if needed to. And the consistently showing up to class, the consistent practicing, the constant pushing yourself to be better than you were yesterday, showing up to fights and events like that, and doing all of this over several years typically, that's where you build the control, that's where you build the character, that's where the self-discipline comes in. Because if you're not disciplined in that, if you're not disciplined in your training, in your practicing, in your diet, the way you live your life, then martial arts is not going to work out. So yes, you should put your child in martial arts for that discipline. Put them in it for the respect aspect, to build character, to have confidence. Those are all great things that martial arts teaches. Just make sure the school that you send them to is teaching those things with the foundation and the backbone of learning how to fight, learning how to defend themselves, practical martial arts. Because that's what really matters. Because all those great life skills and the things that you're putting your child in martial arts for are all 100% necessary, every single one, to be a great fighter. And in return, to learn how to defend yourself. And really quick, going back to point 1 about it being a combat sport, you have to be okay with your kid coming out with some scuff some bruises once in a while. It's what happens. But that's just like any other sport. You play baseball, you're gonna get some bruises. You play basketball, you're gonna be pushing each other. Football, you're literally slamming your head into each other. Like every sport that's physical is gonna come. Your child's gonna get bruises and bumps and scratches. That's how it happens. So just keep an open mind. Number 3, and my last big serious one, is that martial arts is a journey. It is not a sprint, it is a marathon. You have to understand, especially if your child is young, as in 5 to 12, 5 to 13, even older, maybe 14 or 15, still in a very young age, you have to understand that learning everything that there is to learn about fighting, all the basic things, is a lot. There's a lot there. There is a lot to unpack. And oftentimes it is not developmentally appropriate for a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old to be able to learn all those things. Now, when your child is 10 or 11, can they be working towards learning it? Can they work the skills? Can they work punches and kicks and, slips and blocking? Absolutely. 100% they should be. That's what martial arts is there for, to build up. It's a process. But until they hit an age of almost maturity, to a point where they have to understand that part of fighting is also getting hit, and they have to be okay with getting hit, meaning getting hit in the face, having your nose bleed, things along those lines. This is the part of martial arts no one wants to talk about, because no parent wants to send their kid to a school where they are going to get hurt, or put them in an activity where they are going to get hurt. Which is why, it is so important that you are really checking out the school, making sure that they are safely learning how to fight, but that they are learning how to fight, and it's not just kind of kicking at the air, not doing a whole lot, really not practically learning how to defend themselves. Because that is just as bad as training super aggressively, getting hurt, getting knocked out. Both of those things are terrible. Because on the one side, you have your child getting hurt, and on the other side, you have your child thinking they know how to defend themselves, but then they can't. And when they need to, they get hurt. But luckily, although there are a bunch of schools out there that are not so great, there are a bunch of schools that are really, really awesome too, and I'm sure you'll be able to find one. But like I was saying, it is a marathon. It is a very long, long journey with no end, really, to being able to better yourself in martial arts. You're constantly learning new things. You're constantly trying to improve things, trying to get better, trying to reach that next step up. And it is a journey. It is a big, long journey. Meaning that when you go to put your kid in martial arts, it might be good to have a conversation with them, knowing that martial arts isn't about getting that black belt or winning that competition, but it's about bettering yourself spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And know that it's going to take time, lots and lots of time, to learn how to fight and learn all those aspects, all those life skills that martial arts provide. And be okay if your kid doesn't progress as fast as someone else, or isn't fitting within the system. Like a lot of schools have like a promotion every 4 months, and that's how they do things. I'm personally not a huge fan of that, but if they do that and your kid doesn't end up passing, it's not about passing and getting to that black belt. It's not. I understand everyone wants to see their kid succeed. No one wants to see their kid fail. But especially in martial arts, if they are accelerating in the program, if they are getting that next belt over and over again, but they aren't accelerating in their ability to defend themselves, their ability to fight, their spiritual growth, their mental growth, then really they're not getting anything out of it. And unfortunately, what you'll end up with then is the only difference between a kid off the street and the kid who took the martial arts, for 4 years, is one has a piece of black cloth that they get to wrap around their waist and a false confidence that they'll be able to defend themselves if needed. Which is the hard truth about it. Which, again, why school choice about where you're going, who you're training under, what you're training, is so, so, so important. I can't stress that enough. But take it from me. I started martial arts when I was 6 years old. I ended up getting my black belt when I was around 11 or 12 years old. And I want you to talk, think to yourself, do you think I was mentally ready and physically capable of fighting and defending myself at 11 years old? Because the answer is no. No, I was not. I can assure you, when I was 11 and I got punched in the nose, all my ability to fight went out the window. I didn't know what I was going to do because I was 11, as you should be. Kids should not be getting hit in the head. kids also, if they aren't training for stuff like that, shouldn't be getting their black belt. That's just my opinion though. Because the truth is, I'm only 18. And it was only maybe when I was 16 or 17 years old, meaning a year or two ago, was when I was probably just about ready mentally and maturity-wise to learn how to really fight and how to defend myself. Which is absolutely okay. Which is how it should be. Because it was at that age when I could actually start grasping and understanding and being okay and start training for the more intense parts, the dirty parts, the ugly parts that no one wants to talk about with martial arts. So just know, if your kid doesn't end up reaching that end goal of black belt, or their black sash, or whatever that big hoo-ha end goal is within that certain time when they're 12 years old, know that school is probably on their A game, because they understand that child is in no way ready to really know how to fight. Can they practice the skills for it? Absolutely. Should they be practicing the skills for it? Absolutely. But it's going to take some maturity and some aging. Now, there are exceptions. If your dad is a pro boxer and he's been training you since you've been in like 3 or 4 years old, by the time you're 13, you might just be ready off the gun going at it. But let's face it, most of our dads are not like that, and we don't have that one-on-one training constantly to do that. It also depends on the person. But I'm just speaking for the majority of people. So just keep that in mind before you put your child in. Getting your black belt is not everything. Your kid has a lot to learn, and it is a long journey. It's not a quick 2-year thing. You're going to end up, learning everything you need to learn in martial arts. In jiu-jitsu, it takes like minimum 10 years to get your black belt. Minimum 10 years. 10. 10 people. Minimum. So just keep that in mind. It's a long time. Or is it 15 years? It might be 15 years, honestly. It's a long time regardless. Because there is a lot to learn about fighting. There's a lot there, a lot to unpack, and not everything can be taught at a super young age. Because you're mentally not ready for it. And that's okay. And now that we've got all the serious stuff out of the way, let's talk about some other things that are probably going to happen when your child starts martial arts that you should be prepared for. The first one is, if they're anything like me, they're going to absolutely fall in love with martial arts, and they're going to want to do it every single day and want to live at the dojo. Let them do that. Let them do that. Do not hold your child back. If they want to go to class 5 times a week, figure it out. Get them there, because that kid is going to excel so well. As an instructor, I wish my kids would show up 5 times a week. Oh my goodness, I wish they would be taking multiple classes every single day. That makes my heart happy, and they're going to be great. They're going to excel at it. All right, just let them do it. Just let them do it. It's not a big deal. Just let them do it. Just figure out. Get a ride. Figure it out with your spouse. You all good. Work it out. Number 2. If your child starts martial arts, they're probably going to also want to practice at home, which I always encourage. You should be practicing at home. Of course, that shouldn't be relied on. You shouldn't be reliant on your practicing at home. You should be relying on your instructors and going to class multiple times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, and being able to get that work into practice. But anyway, get a heavy bag, but just fair warning, heavy bags are very loud when your child is hitting them. And lastly, the third one, and I guess this is a little more serious, but kind of not as well. Your kid, if you put them in martial arts, will fail at some point. They're going to fail. Something is going to come up where they struggle. They are going to get stuck at a certain rank. They're not going to be able to pass this one test. They're having trouble with this move. They won't get to the point where they can spar because they're still working on, the foundation part of it. They can't go and compete at this thing because they're not ready for it. Something's going to happen where they fail. They might lose the fight. Failure is a part of life. It's a part of martial arts. Martial arts is teaching, those basic life skills, and part of that basic, those basic life skills and building character, building your child up, is having them fail. Breaking the child down and rebuilding them into a bigger, better version of themselves. That is what happens. Failure is okay. Do not be the parent that wants their child to succeed in everything and expects them to, no matter what circumstance, because it is not going to happen in martial arts. It just doesn't happen. And if it does, if you send your kid to a school and they make it through the whole system that is in place there without failing a single time, they never come to a single struggle with anything, I'm sorry to say, you sent your kid to the wrong school. They didn't challenge them enough. They didn't push them enough. They weren't actually trying to push them to be a better fighter. They weren't pushing them to be the best version of themselves. They weren't learning those hard life skills, because let me tell you, the journey in martial arts is not simple enough for a single person to never fail. It's not possible. It doesn't happen. And as a parent, you need to be okay with your kid failing. And failure is not a bad thing. So there's a few things that you should keep in mind before putting your child in martial arts. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. If you'd like to leave them down below, please let me know if there's anything else you have questions on, you know, like if you want to see any like other videos, any video ideas, I'll be happy to make that. And I will see you in the next one.